ladies. Welcome to the Jen Marple Show. I want to talk to you guys, ladies, today about something that I think is really going to help you. And it's going to help you get unstuck. It's going to help you figure out what you want to do, because I know a lot of you out there are thinking about doing something different. You know there's something kind of tugging at you and you don't know how to get started. So I've shared a bunch of other ways to start unpacking, meaning, going for a walk by yourself, starting to journal, and all those things are great. But here's one thing that came up. I was presenting the other night to a group of wonderful midlife women spanning in ages from 43 to 65. It was such a great group. And what popped up was, well, what I shared with them, I should say, is a way to start moving towards coming back to yourself and figuring out who the hell you are, because that's what happens in midlife to so many of us. It happened to me, that you're so busy working, you're so busy dealing with kids, you're dealing with whatever you're dealing with, that if you really pull back the layers, you're like, who am I? What do I even like? What do I want to do? What brings me joy? So the answer to that is to try something new. Try something new. And so at this presentation I was giving, I dug back into a couple memories that I had. I actually had forgotten that I'd started to do this. But when I was going through my own transformation and really digging deep and figuring out what I wanted to do, a really important thing that I did was throwing myself into new things. Of course, I did coaching training and yoga teacher training and yoga retreats and things like that. But I really stretched myself to attend events and seek out opportunities that I normally wouldn't do. And the reason why this is important is because our lives can get very small when we are locked in the typical day-to-day life. We've all got it. I'm in it. We're all in it. You kind of go around in circles. It's the kids, it's your work, it's this, it's that. If you really look at every day of every week, it's kind of the same. And you're spending time with the same people. You're doing the same things. You're in that routine. Routines are very important and they can set us up for success, but they can also, if we're not careful, limit us in our experiences. So just try something new. And it can be, I'll tell you what I did, and then I'll give you some recommendations. So back, a few years back when I was like, okay, I've always wanted to start a podcast. And, here I am 2 years later when I first had my thought about it. Maybe if I'm being honest, it was maybe almost 3 years. One gal that I knew way back when, actually, she was almost a potential client, and she's got a very successful podcast, and we've stayed in touch, and she's fabulous. And she was doing a live podcast recording in the Mission District in San Francisco. So if you're familiar with San Francisco at all, the Mission is super fun. It's edgy. It's eclectic. I mean, I used to live in the Haight, so it's basically not quite the same as the Haight, but just energetic, young, happening, hip and happening. It's awesome. But I don't live in the city anymore. So I was like, oh, cool. There's this live podcast recording happening in the Mission. I'm going by myself. So I know that can be really scary for some of you to think about going somewhere by yourself, but I very specifically took myself there alone to open myself up to the possibility of meeting people. Because I know if you've got a wing woman or wingman with you, you might not do that. It's also okay to take a friend if you want to try something. You don't have to go it alone, but I'm just explaining what I did. And it was this exhilarating experience because, okay, there's me, I'm a mom, you kind of get stuck in these roles of mom, you're working, you're this, you're that. Am I cool? Of course, we're all cool. Of course we are. But to roll up into the Mission and, I'm walking down the street and there's all these awesome restaurants and boutiques and just the diversity of people. And that's the really big point I want to make is that when we spend all of our time, really, if you're a working mom or not working and you're a mom or you're just at midlife, we do spend time with the same people. They're all great. We don't hate them. That's not what I'm saying. We just seem to forget that there's a whole world out there. And so it was transformational that night, just going into the Mission and seeing, so many people younger, people older, and then popping into this live podcast recording and hanging out with the cute bartenders. They're like 22 and, chatting with the podcast hosts. And they were, two of them were local news celebrities here in the Bay Area. And one was this traveling podcaster, and so they're doing a joint podcast. So I'm chatting with the bartenders, and I'm just chatting with the younger kids, I will call them, like the women who were like in their early to mid 20s, like working at cool companies. And then I talked to some older folks who were living in the neighborhood, and I just opened myself up to this whole experience. And then we had this like awesome live podcast, and it was about it was a really interesting topic. It was funny. We're in the heart of the mission. We're talking about the plight of the working mom. And so, of course, that topic was really interesting. And there were some women I was sitting next to, had very young children. And we just, we had these wonderful conversations. And then I met up with, this gal I used to know, like, well, way back when. And so we were catching up and just meeting all these new people. And I just felt energized. So I think it's really important for all of us women to get out of the zone of our day to day and remember who we are without everybody else around us, husbands, partners, kids, this, that, and the other. So I'm like, here I am, I'm Jen. I am a person of this world, cruised into the mission. I am sitting at this really cool podcast recording in this edgy boutique. I can't remember the name of it, but they had a Beta Brand, I think it was. They had a podcast studio there. So there's just this really eclectic mix of folks. And I just felt energized. It was like I stripped away all the layers. And I'm like, you can kind of come back to yourself. That's the point of this. And also open yourself up to just stretching your brain, meeting new people. And who knows, like that was one of the many experiences that got me to where I am today. And as of this recording, I have produced 40 podcasts. And I never thought I was going to do it. I hemmed and hawed. It took forever. But that one live experience, it still sticks with me. I want to do a live podcast experience at some point. You heard it here first. So ladies, try something new. It doesn't have to be as drastic. And I know a lot of you don't live potentially next to big cities where you can pop in and have all that, the craziness of a city vibe. And of course, we're still in a pandemic, so I know a lot of in-person things are still out of reach, but you can still experience this trying something new by joining an online lecture. You could join a book club. You could, well, here's a shameless plug right now, and it's actually not a shameless plug because I'm just going to plug it. I am kicking off my Midlife Conversation series this week, and it starts on Wednesday, so it's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And it will be a 1-hour conversation each day. And it will be at 12 p.m. Pacific time. So we'll go from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific time, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week. So that's February 9, 10, and 11. We'll meet on Zoom, and we're going to discuss 3 really provocative questions about what it means to be a woman at midlife. And so I'll kind of keep that a little bit under wraps of the exact questions I'm going to ask. But just know there are it's really an amazing group of women that has formed, and there are still spaces left. And this is going to be a really dynamic conversation about what it means to be a woman at midlife today. So for trying something new, maybe you're trying something new. Just step out of your comfort zone and enter a room with a bunch of women who are at midlife, and we're going to break it all down and have a really great conversation. And you never know where it's going to lead. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know what's going to be sparked in your mind by just attending something like this if you've never done it before. So I would challenge all of you, and of course I would love to see your beautiful faces, because the problem with the podcast is that I don't get to talk to you face to face. And so that would be my greatest joy, is to see your beautiful faces. Join me in that Zoom room for those 3 days. And if you can't make all 3 days, it's fine, because each day is a separate conversation. So it's not going to be that we start something and we're continuing the same conversation the next day. So if you need to pop in, pop out, and pop back in, that's all good. You won't miss anything. But I will be recording them. So if you register, you'll have access to the recording after the sessions are over, and I'll have that up for a week. So if that piques your interest and that's something that would get you out of your zone a little bit, and also, you're going to know that you're not alone in feeling a lot of things that you're feeling at midlife, join me, join us. Again, we have a great group. I have the link in the show notes. And if you follow me anywhere on social media, I'm plastering it everywhere. But if you go on Instagram, you can click the link in bio and you can easily register. Easy, easy peasy. So that could be one way for you to try something new. Another thing could just be, like I said, there's book clubs, there's lectures. I've gone to TED Talks by myself. And I'm going to really put a plug in here right now for doing things by yourself. Because when you do things by yourself, you open yourself up to meeting new people and having really incredible experiences. Maybe go take yourself out to dinner. I know that might be hard depending on pandemic and where we are, but if you can, try something like that. Go to a museum by yourself. Join a book club. There are so many book clubs, and you can, pick a book that's of interest or something that's going to completely stretch you and put you into a different sort of zone. You could take a different exercise class. You could, go 2 towns over and do Pilates in the park or something like that. You could meet a friend or a former colleague for coffee. Maybe there's somebody out there that you are really admiring what they're doing. You're like, God, it would really be cool to chat with her. Reach out. People reach out to me all the time. I've never denied anyone a chat. I love to chat with someone. You're going to be surprised. People want to talk to you. But there's such power in trying something new and how it can open. You don't even know where it's going to go. Just kind of follow that instinct. But sometimes you might not have the instinct. So let me just address that too, because we're all so busy. But again, it all goes back to seeing why you're busy. What can you take out? Of course, there's the things that you have to do, but there are things that you can say no to. So you can say yes to some of these new things that I'm suggesting. Try a different, you probably see friends posting things that they're doing. Try a different yoga class. Try a different cafe. Maybe take yourself out of the house and go work from a different place, because that changes up the brain. That changes, the environment, and you get inspired by seeing different people. I remember when I was in LA, this was right before the pandemic hit. I was at an event and then I could have taken off right away, but I decided to stay. I was staying at this really cool hotel and it had it just had such a hip happening vibe. I'm like, I am feeling so inspired by this that I'm going to work here for a couple hours. So I just sat in the restaurant and I just had this different experience. Because if we're in the same zone, doing the same thing, working in the same place every day, you're not being stretched, you're not being expanded. You forget that there's a whole different world out there and what that can open up for you. So it can be something really small. This doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to cost any money at all. It's just mixing it up and trying something new, because you never know where it's going to go. And by trying something new, you're shaking up, I want to say you're kind of shaking up your cell structure, and your mind is going to be open to new experiences, new perspectives, because that's one thing, we do tend to lose perspective if we're always doing the same thing. So a grand thing to do would be maybe taking yourself on a trip, if that's something that's in your realm and that's something you can do. Or do what I did and go to a lecture in the Mission District. I mean, there are lectures, if you look, there's so many wonderful people speaking. There are so many different events. There's so many things available to you virtually. I mean, it's amazing. If you go on Eventbrite, just to pull up one thing, and you just click on virtual events, there is something for everyone. So just if there's anything that's been piquing your interest, and or maybe there's something geographically you want to tackle. I'm going to say that again. Or maybe there's a different, what do I want to say here? Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. So maybe there's a different, what the hell do I want to say here? I'm completely losing my train of thought. Anyway, so I'm going back to Eventbrite. So check out places like Eventbrite, Facebook events. I mean, there's so many events. You're actually going to be surprised at what's available to you and what's available at your fingertips. And these are, you can search for virtual events, you can search for in-person events. So if you really have no idea where to begin, just do a little scroll and kind of like do like a little roulette or something and just be like, oh, wherever it falls, and just say, okay, I'm going to go to this lecture, or I'm going to go to this coffee talk with this author, and just see where it goes. Because the biggest thing that I want to leave you with, y'all, is if we keep doing the same thing over and over, we're not going to ever change. And you have to be present. You have to make it a priority. You have to be conscious of it. You've got to be aware. And so by just having that awareness and then trying something new, little teeny tiny thing, trying something new, it's going to open you up to go, oh, okay, so that sparks something, and that might lead you to the next new thing that you're going to do. Or it might drum up some ideas of that business you've been thinking about, or bringing you closer to a goal. So it's just, have fun with it. Have fun with it. This all gets to be fun. I mentioned this in my last podcast with my Mighty Women group. It's like, this all gets to be fun. So hopefully when you're looking at events and things, go for what looks fun and what looks interesting, and not what you think you should be doing, but just go towards what kind of like, oh gosh, that sounds interesting. I haven't done something like that in a while. Go for it. That's going to be your sign. All right, ladies. So try something new. And also, I would love you to try something new and join the Midlife Conversation series, which starts this Wednesday, February 9th, 12 noon Pacific time. It's going to be 3 hours of conversation over 3 days. So again, 1 hour a day, 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific time, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're going to dig in. We're going to have great connection. It could spark something new for you. You're definitely going to feel like you're in a room with a bunch of women who are all going through something similar that you're going through, because we're all at midlife. And so I'd love to see your beautiful faces on Zoom next week. The link is in the show notes. It's on the link in bio and my Instagram at Jen Marples. It's on Eventbrite. It's everywhere. So please join me. And if you can't do that, no worries. You go out and find something that sparks a little bit of joy, a little bit of interest, a little bit of curiosity, and you can't go wrong. Have a beautiful day, ladies, and I will see you soon.